Claire Evans was 34 years old, and every wrinkle beneath her eyes told a story of sleepless nights and quiet sacrifices. She lived in a small Kentucky town where the air smelled like engine oil and early morning dew. The kind of place where everyone waved whether they knew you or not, and everyone usually did. Her world revolved around her 8-year-old son, Eli, a bright-eyed boy who never stopped asking questions and never missed a hug before bedtime. They lived in a weathered 2-bedroom house on the edge of town, not far from the gas station where Claire worked the night shift. By day, she served coffee and scrambled eggs at a roadside diner. She rarely complained, even when her feet hurt or her eyes stung from too little sleep. Every day, she slipped a plain silver ring onto her finger. It did not shine much anymore. When people asked about it, she simply smiled and changed the subject. Most stopped asking after a while. That ring was hers, and the story behind it was one she had locked away. 100 miles from boardrooms and billion-dollar negotiations, Liam Whitaker sat behind the wheel of a high-end SUV that looked more at home on city streets than the winding roads of the countryside. At 38, he had made more money than he could count. Apps, startups, mergers. His life had been a blur of headlines and backroom deals. But recently, the sound of notifications and the glow of glass screens had become unbearable. So he left it behind. Not forever, just for a while. He told no one where he was going, only that he needed to drive, clear his head, see the world without filters, and remember what mattered. He wore jeans that still creased like they were new and a flannel shirt that did not quite hide his discomfort with small-town life. His hands had never changed a tire or scrubbed grease from beneath fingernails. It was late afternoon when his SUV came to a dead stop on the side of a sun-baked road just outside Claire's town. The screen blinked red, low oil pressure. Then his phone lost signal. He stepped out into the dry, humming silence. The road stretched for miles. No cars, no movement, just heat and quiet. He popped the hood, stared at the engine, and then did nothing. Minutes passed. Then more. A pickup truck passed without stopping. A pair of teenagers on bikes glanced his way but kept riding. Liam leaned against the side of the vehicle and let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. An hour later, an old sedan pulled over. The driver's door creaked, and out stepped Claire, diner uniform still on, hair pulled into a messy bun, eyes heavy with exhaustion. "You stuck?" she asked, not unkindly. Liam blinked at her, unsure whether to feel hopeful or embarrassed. "Looks like it." She opened the back of her car, pulled out a jack, and knelt beside his front tire. "You got a flat? You got a spare?" He nodded. "I think so." Claire found it, hoisted it, and changed the tire with the quiet precision of someone who had done it too many times before. Liam tried to help. She waved him off gently. He watched her work. She was strong but not showy, efficient but not cold. There was a calmness about her, like she had already faced the worst life had to offer and had learned how to keep going anyway. When the job was done, she wiped her hands on a rag and turned to leave. "Wait," he called out. He pulled out his wallet. "Let me pay you." She shook her head. "You do not need to. But just do something kind for someone else. That is enough." She walked back to her car. Before she climbed in, Liam noticed her ring glinting in the late sun. "Are you married?" he asked gently. She paused, her back still to him. "Not anymore," she said quietly. Then she drove off. Liam stood there, the weight of her words sinking in. For a moment, he felt smaller than he had in years, not because he had been helped, but because someone with far less had offered far more. And in that dusty silence, with a changed tire and a new question turning over in his mind, something began to shift in him. Liam could not shake the image of Claire driving away. He had met hundreds of people in his lifetime, executives, investors, influencers, but none who had left him speechless the way she did. There was something about her, the way she held herself together like cracked porcelain that refused to shatter. So he stayed. He checked into a weathered little motel just off Main Street. The room smelled faintly of bleach and pine cleaner, and the mattress dipped in the middle. But he liked it. It felt real, unpolished, alive. The next morning, he walked into the diner Claire worked at. The same one whose coffee tasted like burnt hope and whose eggs were always overcooked. She stood behind the counter, her uniform freshly pressed, her name tag slightly crooked. She noticed him right away, but said nothing. Just poured him coffee like he was any other customer. Liam watched her work. She moved fast, balancing plates, smiling when she had to, apologizing more than she should. A couple at the corner booth whispered when he walked in. Another man by the window chuckled loud enough to be heard. "What's a city boy doing here? GPS breakdown again?" Claire shot him a glance. Not sharp but firm. Just enough to silence him. Later, she walked past Liam's table with a pot of coffee and said softly, "You should not be here." He looked up. "Why?" She leaned closer. "Because people here do not take kindly to people who look like you being kind to people like me." Then she walked away. The words stayed with him. Over the next few days, Liam began noticing things. Subtle things. Claire's smile would falter when she opened a utility bill. Her fingers would tremble when she read a note from Eli's school about therapy payments. Once, she stepped outside and pressed her head against the wall, taking deep breaths before walking back in. Liam learned her son had mild developmental delays. Nothing too severe, but enough to need weekly sessions with a specialist. Insurance barely covered it. The town offered little help. People whispered about Claire's choices, not her struggles. And then there was the ring. He heard the gossip at the diner counter. That her husband had run off. That he had been no good. That the ring was just her way of pretending she was still wanted. Nobody said it to her face. But Liam saw how their stares lingered. One afternoon, Liam overheard something that made his blood run cold. Claire had just finished her shift. Her manager, a stocky man with tired eyes and too much authority, called her into the kitchen. His voice rose behind the swinging doors. "You're getting too friendly with that stranger. People are talking. You want to keep your job, keep your head down. Last warning." Claire stepped out moments later. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were glossy. She wiped her hands and pretended nothing had happened. Liam said nothing. Just finished his meal and left a $500 tip under the plate. He did not leave a note. Did not wait to see her reaction. But 20 minutes later, she found him sitting on a bench outside the motel. She held the money out. "Take it back." He hesitated. "It's not charity." "No," she said, "it's guilt. And I don't want either. I was trying to help." "You don't even know me," she said, voice low but steady. "I help people because I want to. Not because I expect to be saved. You're not here to fix me." He looked down. She was right. "I'm sorry," he said. She nodded, tucked the money into his jacket pocket, and walked away. As she disappeared around the corner, Liam realized this was not just a small town with small-minded people. This was a battlefield. And Claire had been fighting alone for a long, long time. Sometimes, when Claire was alone, truly alone, she let herself remember the version of her life that could have been. It came in flashes. A laughing kitchen, sunlight on hardwood floors, Eli's first birthday cake smeared across his cheeks while two hands held him steady, hers and someone else's. She had loved once. Deeply. Foolishly. And it had cost her everything. He had been charming in the beginning. Supportive. Gentle. But the truth came slow and sharp, one broken promise at a time. He drank too much. Disappeared for days. And when he came back, his words left bruises no one could see. Claire stayed as long as she could, hoping he would change, for Eli's sake. But the day he raised his hand, she took her son and ran. No goodbye. No safety net. Just survival. People in town thought her ring was from that man. It was not. It belonged to her sister, Hannah. The only person who had ever truly stood by her. The one who held her hand in the hospital when Eli was born. The one who whispered, "Promise me, Claire, no matter how hard it gets, you don't give up on him. Or yourself." A car accident took Hannah 3 years ago. Claire never took the ring off. Meanwhile, Liam was beginning to shed the skin of the man he used to be. In the mornings, he stopped by the local garage and handed tools to the mechanics. In the afternoons, he taught a group of teenagers at the library how to code basic websites. They had never met a millionaire before. He never told them he was one. He asked nothing in return. Claire noticed. Slowly, their conversations began to shift. They talked less about the weather and more about the weight people carry. Liam shared stories of boardrooms where no one listened, of the emptiness of buying everything and feeling nothing. Claire listened with arms folded but eyes softening. One evening, Liam found her and Eli at the town park. The boy was chasing fireflies. Claire sat on a bench, her eyes following her son. "She's still with you," Liam said gently, nodding at the ring. Claire looked down. "Always." They talked until the sun dipped low, then walked the quiet road back toward Claire's house. Eli skipped ahead, humming some tune from a cartoon. Claire's laugh came easier now, though still wrapped in caution. When they reached her driveway, she turned to Liam. "Thank you. For not pretending." He nodded. "For what it's worth, I think this town got lucky with you." She smiled. "They do not think so." Then headlights. A black SUV rolled slowly down the street. Not speeding. Not honking. Just idling. Claire's smile faded. The vehicle stopped near her house. The windows were tinted too dark to see through. It did not move. Claire stood frozen. Liam stepped beside her. "Claire." She did not answer. He placed a hand on her arm. "Do you know them?" Her voice came in a whisper, barely audible over Eli's humming. "He is back." Liam turned toward the SUV. The engine purred, unmoving. Claire pulled Eli close. Her entire body tensed as if ready to run. Liam took a step forward, eyes locked on the vehicle. Then, taillights flashed. The SUV backed away slowly, tires whispering against gravel, and disappeared down the road. Claire held Eli tighter. Her hands were shaking. Liam said nothing. The air had turned colder somehow. Thicker. And for the first time since he arrived, Liam felt something other than curiosity. He felt protective. But as Claire led Eli inside and shut the door behind her, Liam stayed on the sidewalk, staring into the night. Whatever piece she had built here, it was cracking. And something told him the real storm had not even started. The black SUV returned the next day. It parked across the street from Claire's home, silent, unmoving. No words. Just presence. Like a threat without a voice. Claire watched from behind her curtain, her breath caught in her throat. Eli was in the living room, lining up his toy trucks, blissfully unaware. She did not need to see the driver to know. It was Mark Delaney. He had been released from prison 3 weeks ago. The state never notified her. No warning. No chance to prepare. He was just free. Free to come and go. Free to sit outside her house and watch. Claire had changed everything after she left him. Her name, her job, even Eli's school. But it had not been enough. Now he was back. And he wanted something. Maybe revenge. Maybe control. Or maybe just to remind her that he still could. She did not call the police. They had failed her before. When she reported the bruises, they said she was overreacting. When she filed for a restraining order, they said there was not enough evidence. When she ran, they had told her to be careful and then closed the file. So instead, she stayed quiet. At work, she forced a smile as she poured coffee and cleaned up after tables that barely noticed her. Her hands trembled when she held a pen. She dropped a plate in the kitchen and burst into tears before anyone could see. Liam noticed. He came by the diner more often now. Sat quietly, watched more than he spoke. One evening, after seeing the SUV again outside her house, he knocked on Claire's door. "I know it's him," he said. "Let me help." Claire shook her head. "No. Claire." "No," she repeated, her voice sharper this time. "You don't understand. Mark doesn't care who gets hurt. If you get involved, he'll come for you too. He doesn't stop. He destroys. Liam's jaw clenched. Then we go to the police. They won't do anything. He stepped back, unsure. He wanted to fight for her, but she was pulling away, building walls he could not climb. The next week brought more cracks. A mother from Eli's class left a voicemail. We're scaling down the birthday party. Hope Eli understands. Claire knew the truth. Word had spread. Someone had seen Mark. Assumptions were made. And her son was being punished for it. Then her landlord knocked. A noise complaint, he said. Strange cars in the neighborhood. He handed her a warning notice and would not meet her eyes. Claire folded the paper and thanked him through gritted teeth. Later that night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, Eli curled beside her. The walls of the house seemed thinner now. The locks weaker. She kept replaying Mark's face in her mind, cold, smug, unbothered. He had not said a word. Not a threat. Not a warning. He did not need to. His silence was louder than anything. And every day he returned, her strength slipped further away. The next morning, Claire showed up at Maya's garage with grease already smudged on her jeans and dark circles under her eyes. She had not planned to go. But when Maya called her at sunrise and simply said, "Come in," hands are better busy than shaking, Claire did not argue. Maya was 60, built like a bulldozer, with short-cropped gray hair and hands that looked like they could twist off a truck's engine. She had run the only honest garage in town for decades. Most folks respected her. Some feared her. Maya handed Claire a rag and nodded toward an old Ford truck on the lift. She leaks. Like most things that have been around long enough. Claire smirked, then got to work. They did not talk much that day. But when the sun dipped low and the tools were put away, Maya lit a cigarette and leaned against the wall. "I know what you're not saying," she said. Claire looked up, confused. "I had one too. Mark. Long time ago. Broke my jaw once. Thought I'd never speak again. Then one day I walked out and never looked back." Claire's throat tightened. "You're not weak for being scared," Maya added. "You're strong for still standing." It was not sympathy. It was survival speaking to survival. And in that moment, Claire felt less alone. Liam dropped by later that week. Not to check on Claire. At least, not openly. He brought a set of jumper cables and asked Maya if she could show him how to use them properly. Maya gave him a side-eye. "Boy, you could buy the company that makes these. What do you really want?" He grinned sheepishly. "To learn. And maybe, to help." Maya studied him, then tossed him a wrench. "Kindness," she said, "is not charity. It is healing. Just make sure you're not doing it to feel better about yourself." Liam nodded. He stayed all afternoon, mostly handing tools and listening to Maya's gruff wisdom. Meanwhile, Eli, unaware of the storms swirling around him, remained a steady flame in Claire's life. He drew pictures on torn paper and cardboard scraps, dragons, rockets, and one recurring figure in shining armor, holding a golden shield. Claire asked once, "Who's that?" Eli beamed. "The knight. He keeps us safe. He looks like Liam, but with cooler hair." Claire smiled through glassy eyes. "He does a pretty good job." One evening, after the garage closed, Liam and Claire sat outside on the back steps, the stars just beginning to emerge in the deep purple sky. Claire finally told him about the ring. "It was my sister's," she said, voice low. "Hannah." Liam listened in silence. "She was everything to me. Strong, smart, stubborn. She married young, thought it was love. It wasn't. Her husband broke more than just promises. He broke her spirit. She tried to hide it, until she couldn't." She paused. One day she just stopped fighting. Liam gently reached out, his fingers brushing hers. "I'm so sorry." Claire nodded. "She gave me this ring the day Eli was born. Said, 'You're the brave one now.' I wear it because I'm scared I won't be." The silence between them stretched long. But it was not empty. It was the silence of understanding. Later that night, Liam stepped outside his motel room and made a quiet phone call. "Rachel," he said to his assistant, "I need you to find someone. A lawyer. Good one. For family protection, custody, restraining orders. Whatever Claire might need." He paused, the weight of his decision settling. "And don't use company funds. This one's personal." "Just why?" Liam looked up at the moon and whispered, "Some debts aren't about money." It happened just past midnight. Claire was closing up the gas station, her arms aching from hours of stocking shelves. She had just locked the register when the door creaked open. Her heart sank. Mark stepped inside, calm as ever, as if he had every right to be there. "Claire," he said, voice smooth like oil, "you look tired. Not sleeping well?" She backed away instinctively, eyes darting toward the security camera, blinking, red light on. But she knew it did not matter. "You need to leave," she said, barely above a whisper. Mark leaned on the counter. "I came to see my son. And I will. One way or another." Before she could move, a car pulled up outside. Liam burst through the door, eyes locked on Mark. "Step away from her." Mark turned, unimpressed. "You again? You're not from here. You don't belong here." Then, with a smirk, he swung. The punch landed hard. Liam staggered, caught off guard. Claire screamed, "Stop it!" The door flew open again. 2 officers stormed in, alerted by a passerby who heard shouting. But the moment Mark raised his hands and backed off, the officers holstered their weapons. "No signs of a crime," one of them said, "unless someone wants to press charges." Claire stared at them, her voice trembling. "He threatened to take my son." They shrugged. "We didn't hear that. Nothing we can do without evidence." She looked at Liam, blood trickling from his lip, then back at the officers. They were already leaving. At home, the dam finally broke. Claire collapsed into a heap on the kitchen floor, sobbing into her knees. Eli was asleep upstairs, unaware of the chaos unfolding beneath him. "No one will ever believe me," she cried. "They never have." Liam knelt beside her, wiping the blood from his mouth with a dish towel. He said nothing at first. Then he reached into his coat pocket and placed 2 cards on the table. "This is a shelter," he said softly. "Confidential, safe. The other is a lawyer. One of the best. She knows your story. She'll listen." Claire stared at them, lips trembling. She picked up the second card, running her thumb over the embossed name. Then Liam did something he had never done before. He asked the question, "Why do you still wear the ring?" Claire did not answer right away. She stood, walked to the window, looked out into the night. "It's not a wedding ring," she finally said. "It belonged to my sister, Hannah." Her voice cracked as the words came. "She gave it to me the night she died. Told me to wear it until I stopped needing the reminder." Liam stood still, waiting. She said, "Don't you dare give up. Not on Eli. Not on yourself. Not on life." Her shoulders trembled. "That ring is the only thing keeping me from believing the world has nothing left for people like me." Liam nodded, heart heavy. He wanted to stay. To protect. To fix. But the next morning, Claire woke up to silence. No text. No knock. No goodbye. His motel room was empty. She searched the town. The garage. The diner. Nothing. Liam Whitaker was gone. And Claire felt the old, familiar sting of disappointment crawl back in. She had let herself believe. And again, she had been left behind. That night, after her shift at the diner, Claire locked the door and turned to leave. The television behind the counter flickered to life. The news. She almost did not look. But then a headline caught her eye. Tech tycoon Liam Whitaker spotted leaving courtroom after donating $10 million to Women's Justice Foundation. The camera cut to a brief clip. Liam in a suit, silent, walking past a crowd of reporters. No interviews. No fanfare. Claire stared at the screen, stunned. And then, slowly, for the first time in a very long time, she smiled. The morning after the news broke, the town was humming. At the diner, whispers floated through the booths like smoke. Did you hear about the millionaire? They say he donated $10 million. Was that the same guy Claire was seen with? Suddenly, Claire Evans was no longer invisible. She stepped through the diner doors as usual, apron in hand, hoping to keep her head down. But her manager intercepted her before she could clock in. "We're going to have to let things settle, Claire," he said flatly. "You've brought a lot of attention." Claire blinked. "I have done nothing wrong." The manager sighed. "It is not about wrong. It is about quiet. This place runs on quiet." He handed her a slip of paper, suspended. Just like that, everything unraveled again. Outside, Claire stood alone on the sidewalk. No job. No Liam. No clarity. The townspeople who once ignored her now watched with sharpened curiosity. The same ones who whispered behind her back now whispered louder, pointing fingers, twisting stories. Some claimed she had tricked a rich man. Others said she had been involved in something shady. She did not have the energy to fight it. Later that afternoon, Claire returned to Maya's garage, not to work, but to hide. Her hands were shaking as she poured herself a cup of lukewarm coffee. Maya noticed. She pulled something from a drawer and placed it on the table, a sealed envelope. "He asked me to give this to you," Maya said gently. "Said not to open it unless you felt like giving up." Claire hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a letter. Not typed, handwritten in a sharp, deliberate style. The kind of handwriting that revealed someone who had lived behind glass walls but was trying, desperately, to reach through them. "Claire, I am sorry I left without a word. I did not want cameras outside your house, or reporters stalking Eli. I did not come to fix you. I did not think you needed fixing. You reminded me what courage looks like. What grace under pressure means. You saved me, Liam." Claire sat with the letter in her lap, silent. No dramatics. No tears. Just stillness. And then she stood. That evening, she walked into the local courthouse with a folder in her arms. Legal documents, statements, and a lawyer by her side. One who had been arranged through a quiet phone call Liam had made days ago. She filed a restraining order against Mark Delaney. She did it without apology. Without permission. And when she returned to Maya's garage the next morning, she wore her coveralls like armor. Maya handed her a wrench. "You back for good?" Claire nodded. "For good." That day, she tuned engines and changed oil with a different fire in her chest. This time, it was not survival. There was something else, resolve. The shift in Claire was undeniable. She stood in front of the women's community group, trembling at first. But with every word, her voice grew steadier, stronger. "I've spent my life hiding from the world," Claire began, her eyes scanning the room. "I thought I could protect Eli by keeping my head down, working harder than anyone else, and pretending everything was fine." She paused. The room was silent. "But that's not enough. Not anymore. I can't be silent about what's happening. I can't let fear control me." As she spoke, something changed. The women in the room, some of whom had whispered behind her back, now listened. One by one, they nodded in understanding. Claire's vulnerability broke open a wall of judgment. The woman who had once disinvited Eli from a birthday party spoke up first. "I had no idea," she said quietly. "I was wrong." One by one, others followed. They apologized. They pledged to support Claire in ways they had never before considered. By the time the meeting ended, Claire wasn't just the woman who worked at the diner. She was the woman who had found her voice. That evening, she came home to a surprise, an envelope on her doorstep. She opened it carefully, heart pounding. Inside was a thick stack of cash, anonymous, but unmistakable in its generosity. And then, there was a knock at her door. It was Sarah, the mother who had once turned Eli away. "I'm so sorry, Claire," she said, holding out a second-hand coat for Eli. I'd like to make things right." The town, slowly but surely, was shifting, but not everyone was pleased. That night, after Claire finished at Maya's garage, she returned home to a sight that made her blood run cold. Maya's garage door had been vandalized, spray paint smeared across the walls, tires slashed. The words "outsiders" and "troublemaker" were scrawled across the building. But what they did not know was that Liam's security cameras, installed before his sudden departure, had captured the whole thing. The police, who had ignored Claire's calls before, were now at her door. With evidence in hand, they were forced to act. Mark Delaney was arrested the next day. Still, Claire remained focused. Nothing could knock her off her course now. Eli came home from school with a wide grin on his face. "I won," he shouted, holding up a small certificate. Claire knelt down, her heart swelling. "What did you win, baby?" He handed her the paper. "I won the art contest. For my picture of you fixing a car. And the shining man." Claire's eyes misted over as she looked at the drawing, her, covered in grease, standing beside a glowing figure. The words beneath read, "For fixing more than just engines." She hugged him tightly. "I am so proud of you." The next morning, as Claire stepped outside to grab the paper, she froze. Liam's SUV was parked across the street. Her breath caught in her throat. He stepped out, looking different, humbled. His suit was gone, replaced by a simple shirt and jeans. There were no cameras. No media. Just him. "Liam," Claire said, her voice low. "I had to come back," he said, walking toward her. "Not to save you. I didn't need to save you. But I needed to see if you would let me stand beside you." Claire looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of a grand gesture, of another exit. But all she saw was sincerity. She nodded. "I'm not the same woman who met you here before." Liam smiled. "I know. And that's exactly why I came back." Claire stood in the doorway, her heart still raw from the things she had endured, the things she had survived. Liam was there, standing just a few feet away, waiting. But Claire couldn't let go of the feeling that he had left her without the choice. The choice to trust him, to decide for herself whether he was real or just another man who would disappear when it became too difficult. "You left without giving me the choice to trust you," she said, her voice firm but weary. Liam's face tightened with regret. He took a step toward her, then stopped himself, as if waiting for permission. "I made a mistake," he said softly. "I didn't know how to face you. I grew up with a mother who was abandoned by the man she loved. I didn't want to become the kind of man who runs. I just didn't know how to stay." For a moment, Claire didn't respond. She could hear the truth in his words, but the scar of abandonment still throbbed in her chest. Liam stood there, his eyes steady, as if he knew there was no rushing this. His presence, however, was a subtle comfort. Over the days that followed, he quietly worked at Maya's garage, never pushing, never expecting anything. He simply showed up. He shared meals with Claire and Eli, his conversation light, his demeanor humble. Every time he walked into the garage, every time he smiled at Eli, Claire saw something in him that she hadn't noticed before. A man who was trying to be different, trying to make up for past mistakes. He never mentioned his wealth, his business empire, or his past. He was just there, present and steady. One evening, as Claire wiped down the counter in the garage, Liam stood by, watching her. When the room quieted, he spoke again. "I bought the old auto shop on Main Street," he said, his voice steady. "I want you to run it. Under your name. Not as a gift, Claire, but as an investment. In you." Claire blinked, her mind racing. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because you already invested in me," he replied. "When I was broken, you helped me find myself again. Now it's my turn. Let me help you find what you deserve." It was the most generous thing anyone had ever offered her. But it came with its own weight. Before she could respond, a small envelope arrived at her door, delivered by a courier. Her hands shook as she opened it. The letter inside was from her lawyer, and her heart sank as she read the contents. Mark was contesting custody of Eli. The court date had been set. If she lost, Eli could be taken away from her. For a moment, the world around Claire seemed to blur. Her thoughts raced about everything she had fought for, everything she had sacrificed. But then she remembered Liam's words. The trust he had worked to earn. The way he had invested in her, not just with money, but with patience and honesty. She couldn't let Mark win. Not now. Her eyes hardened with resolve. She had already faced the worst. And now, with everything at stake, she would not back down. The suspense of what was to come loomed over her, but in that moment, Claire knew one thing for certain. She was not going to lose. The courtroom was cold, sterile, and silent, save for the quiet hum of the air conditioning. The tension in the room was palpable as Claire stood before the judge, her heart pounding in her chest. Mark sat across from her, his smug expression a stark contrast to the way Claire felt inside. He had always tried to control everything, even her life and her son's. Today, he was trying to do the same. His lawyer, a slick man with a polished demeanor, spoke first. "Your Honor, the defendant, Claire Evans, has shown herself to be unstable and incapable of providing a safe, nurturing home for her child. She works multiple jobs, has no significant support system, and has been living in a questionable environment." Claire clenched her jaw, fighting to keep her composure. The accusations were as familiar as they were false. Mark had always tried to paint her as unworthy, as less than. But today, she would show him who she truly was. She stood tall, her voice steady but filled with quiet strength. "I am not perfect," she began, "but I am a mother. I have fought for my son since the day he was born. I have worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to make sure he has what he needs. I have never stopped fighting for him. And I will never stop fighting for him. I raised him alone after my sister died. Her memory is what keeps me going, what makes me strong. I wear this ring because it reminds me to never give up, no matter how hard life gets." She paused, feeling the weight of her words settle in the room. "I am not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for the right to raise my son, to give him the future he deserves. Because he deserves more than this man," she said, her voice firm as she gestured toward Mark. The courtroom was still. And then, a surprising voice broke the silence. Maya, the mechanic from the garage, stood and approached the stand. She was a woman of few words, but her testimony was powerful. "I've known Claire for a long time," she said. "She's not just a hard-working woman. She's a woman who loves her son with everything she has. She's had every reason to give up, and she hasn't. I've seen her give everything, her heart, her time, her soul. She deserves to keep that boy." Liam stood next. He wasn't here as a millionaire tech mogul. He was here as a man who had witnessed Claire's strength firsthand. "I came to this town looking for something I didn't even understand. And what I found was Claire. She is more than a mother, she's a person of incredible strength and heart. She saved me in ways I didn't know I needed. I've watched her fight for what matters most in this world. And that's love." As Liam spoke, Claire felt a warmth spread through her. For the first time, she wasn't fighting alone. The people in her life were standing beside her, and together, they were telling her story. The judge listened carefully, his gaze never wavering as he took in the testimony. When the moment came, he nodded slowly and made his ruling. After reviewing the evidence and hearing the testimonies, the judge said, "I find that Claire Evans has demonstrated resilience, stability, and an unwavering commitment to her child. It is clear that she has provided a loving and supportive environment for Eli, despite the challenges she has faced. I am granting full custody to Claire Evans. Furthermore, Mark Delaney is hereby restricted from any future contact with Eli without legal mediation. Claire felt her knees weaken, but she didn't falter. She squeezed Eli's hand, feeling the small, warm fingers wrap around hers. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she couldn't stop the smile that spread across her face. As the judge's words echoed in her ears, she whispered to Eli, her voice thick with emotion, "We are free now." It was over. The fight, the fear, the uncertainty. For the first time, Claire felt like she could finally breathe. The weight had lifted from her shoulders, and in its place, there was peace. Weeks passed, and the town that had once cast judgment on Claire now began to see her differently. The whispers were quieter, the glares less frequent. At a local event, held in the town square, Liam took the stage. He wasn't here as the wealthy tech mogul anymore. He had returned as a man who had learned something invaluable. Standing at the podium, he glanced over at Claire, who was helping Eli with his booth. He cleared his throat before speaking into the mic. "I used to think that success was all about the numbers, the millions you make, the fame you gain. But I was wrong," Liam began, his voice steady but filled with sincerity. "Success isn't measured by how much you have. It's measured by how much you give. By how many lives you touch when no one is watching, by how you rebuild when no one expects it. Claire Evans taught me that. She rebuilt herself. She rebuilt her son's life. And she rebuilt me." Liam's eyes met Claire's across the crowd, and for a moment, their gazes locked. There were no words needed, only the understanding of everything that had come before. The crowd was silent for a beat before Liam continued. "I came to this town looking for something I thought I had lost. But what I found was more than I could have imagined. I found that some of the most powerful things in life come without price tags. Some of the strongest people walk without titles, and some of the most important changes come from acts of kindness, not money." A round of applause echoed through the square, but Liam's words had already planted something deeper, an awareness that would stay with the people who heard it. As the weeks went by, Claire's life continued to shift. She stood proudly in front of her new auto shop, Evans Auto and Care, the sign hanging above the door reading, "Driven by strength, powered by kindness." It was more than just a business. It was a reflection of everything she had worked for, everything she had overcome. Maya had become her silent partner, offering her wisdom and support without asking for recognition. The garage hummed with the sound of engines and conversation as Claire worked alongside her team, showing not just the mechanics of cars, but the deeper repair that was needed in the hearts of the people around her. The customers began to come, not just because Claire was skilled, but because they had heard her story. Word of mouth spread. The small town that had once looked down on her now saw her as a symbol of strength, resilience, and quiet heroism. They knew that when they came to Claire's shop, they weren't just fixing a car. They were supporting someone who had rebuilt herself from the ground up. The same townsfolk who had once whispered behind her back now waved when they saw her driving by. The community, once closed off and judgmental, began to change. Slowly, but surely, they began to open up. They saw the value in kindness, in second chances, and in strength that wasn't defined by money or power. The lesson Claire had learned, and now shared with others, echoed through the town like a quiet truth. Sometimes, a kind act from someone who has little can repair more than just a broken car. It can repair a broken man, a broken system, a broken heart. The sun began to dip behind the rolling hills, casting a warm, golden hue over the small town. Claire, Liam, and Eli sat together on the worn wooden bench outside the shop, the gentle hum of evening settling around them. It had been a long road, filled with challenges, setbacks, and quiet victories, but here they were, stronger for it. Eli, his small face full of curiosity, broke the silence. He turned to Liam, his eyes searching. "Are you going to stay?" Eli asked, his voice soft but hopeful. Liam met his gaze, his heart swelling with a mixture of emotions. He turned to Claire, seeking her silent permission. She nodded slightly, the faintest gesture but enough for Liam to know his place. "Yes," Liam replied, his voice steady and sure. "If you will have me." Claire smiled, the weight of years of fear and doubt beginning to lift. She didn't need to say anything more. This was her family now. The family she had fought for, the one she had rebuilt piece by piece. In the soft light of the evening, Claire stood up and walked into the shop. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She walked over to the counter, where her sister's ring, her constant reminder of loss and love, lay. The ring, which had always felt like both a burden and a symbol of hope, was now ready to serve a new purpose. With a slow, deliberate motion, Claire removed the ring from her finger and placed it gently into a small glass case at the counter. The glass caught the light, and for the first time, Claire felt a sense of peace as she set it down. "It belongs here now," she whispered to herself, more than anyone else. A reminder to never stop believing in people. The final scene unfolded as a quiet, powerful montage. Claire worked under the hood of a car, her hands moving with confidence and skill. The steady rhythm of her actions was mirrored by the sounds of life in the shop, a place that had become not just a business, but a sanctuary for all who entered. Eli played in the corner of the garage, his laughter ringing through the air as he built imaginary worlds with toy cars. It was a far cry from the quiet fear that had once filled their home. Liam, now a steady presence in their lives, helped customers at the register, offering a smile that was no longer masked by wealth or ego. He was simply a man who had found his place in the world, thanks to the woman and child who had shown him what truly mattered. As the evening deepened, the shop lights glowed warmly into the night. They stood strong and steady, illuminating the path forward. The door was always open, a beacon for anyone who needed a little kindness, a little repair, or a place to start over. The camera slowly pulled back, showing the shop, small, humble, but full of life. It was a place where broken things could be fixed, where second chances were given, and where people found their strength in each other. And as the scene faded to black, the soft glow of the shop remained, a symbol of hope, redemption, and the power of belief.